Hello, Simon.
Hey, how's it going?
Good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
And thank you for joining me today. I'm excited about this discussion. I think this has been a long time coming.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, we've been talking about this off and on for probably upwards of a year now, I think.
Yeah, well, and I'm hoping this isn't the end of the discussion. I hope this sparks a broader discussion, not just between us, but in the industry in general. Maybe just give us some context first, because you've been transitioning over the last year or a couple of years, something like that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, pardon me. I think I've always known that I was non-binary. I am non-binary. But like a lot of people who are transitioning, I think the pandemic gave this weird sort of license for people to be more themselves more easily because you weren't going anywhere. You were able to sort of sit and think and go, what exactly do I like? What is my outward presentation of my inner self? And yeah, it really afforded me an opportunity to do that, I have to say. And so, I started a journey where I was sort of moving more towards the masculine end of the spectrum. I'm not exclusively there, but yeah, I mean, I had top surgery in gosh, that was 2021, June 2021. For those who don't know what top surgery is, it's a double mastectomy. It's mainly removing your breast tissue. It is an interesting experience. You kind of come out of it feeling like a bit of a spoon. You're a bit concave. And then eventually you learn to use your arms again and actually reach out and, stretch all those things again, minus breast tissue, which is wonderful, by the way, if you like to jog. Sorry, that's just me. And then I've been taking testosterone for about a year now. It's just over a year, actually. And that in itself has deepened my voice pretty considerably. And so in the past year, I've been actually trying to figure out exactly how to use my voice, what range it has, both in speaking and singing terms, and exactly how I want to move forward as a voice person to use the voice that I have now, and just navigate marketing myself, being myself, doing all the projects that I used to do before, or whether or not I'm actually capable of, because some of them I am and some of them I'm not. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah, and well, it's been interesting for me too, both personally and professionally, because we've known each other for, I'd say, probably 15 years or more, something like that.
Since 2006.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
And of course, we've collaborated on many, many projects over the years. And someone's voice, it just becomes part of what you associate with their personality. It's like their face or anything else like that. And I have to say, when I first heard your new voice, it was a little strange. And I expected that. But after 5 minutes, I just kind of got used to it and it was fine. So that was cool. But no, it definitely requires a change in how you market yourself as a voiceover person and how you fit into the industry with this different voice. And that's the thing I think we want to talk about. And there's an interesting kind of intersection between where our careers are right now, because I keep preaching, let's get away from this male-female binary. And originally when I was talking about it, I wasn't talking about necessarily looking at non-binary voices, but just getting away from the binary in general, because coming from the world of audio branding, I'm all about, let's have a plan, let's have a strategy, let's figure out who we are, and then how does that translate to sound? So I'm always kind of not shocked, but surprised that there are a lot of people who are still soliciting voice work by saying, I need a male voice or I need a female voice. And it happens so often. And I'm always pushing back saying, that doesn't give me much to work with. Like, what is it you want the voice to do? What sort of effect are you after? And that's the thing. I'm trying to get away from gender and more to effect and having that emotional core. Yeah, sorry, were you going to say something? I could ramble about this all day.
Oh gosh, yeah. No, I've definitely had these conversations with people too, and it's part of the reason actually. I mean, it's one of a myriad of reasons why I used to work for radio. I used to be a commercial producer and a voice person on air and copywriting, all of that. And it drove me bananas. Like just the I need a male voice or a female voice. And it was a shorthand, really. Like if I look at it now, it was a shorthand to try and narrow down what the stereotypical type of read that you were looking for. Because if it was a male voice, the expectation was like, I need a hard sell kind of blah, 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 you know? And if it's a male or female voice, you need more of the like, you know, smooth and like, you know, something for a jewelry ad, you know, like it just kind of, it was just very, there were a lot of tropes. And I think that, yeah, I have the similar mindset of like, okay, well, if you're building a brand, if you're actually trying to build a voice, this spokesperson for your business or spokespeople, you know, like there's more nuance to it than that. Like we've talked about your adjective board before, like where you have like, you know, do you want loud? Do you want quiet? Do you want smooth? Do you want hard? Do you want gritty? Do you want, like there's so much to it that if you have the time and you have the ability to think more about what you want from that voice or those voices, then yeah, do so. Be a bit more cerebral about it, because honestly, it only stands to benefit your business. So that's how I used to think about it too. But then the immediacy of my previous job was that you only had so many people available. So you're like, well, I need that person because they're it.
Yeah. Well, and yeah. That's fair. Yeah. But when you don't have those limitations and you suddenly have a whole world of voices out there to choose from, and especially the voice industry, I find, is becoming more and more specialized as well.
Yes.
So there are, I think the industry is more, I guess, welcoming to the full spectrum of the human voice than it ever has been. It doesn't have to be hyper masculine or hyper feminine. And
I would agree with that. For
yeah.
Sure.
And I like that we're exploring with you this kind of middle ground, because as we said, your voice is different now. I think it leans, it's funny, I think I'm almost too close to it to make these kinds of calls. I feel like it leans slightly more female still, but there is an androgynous quality to it. And it begs the question of, how do you, and you alluded to this earlier, how does it fit in, and how do we market you? And that's something that you and I are going to explore, I think, in the coming weeks. But it's a very interesting thing. It's new ground for both of us.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because I like to joke to my friends that I sort of see myself as a bit of a science experiment. I'm just like, okay, well, I've gone through this the double mastectomy thing, and that was really interesting. And you're like, okay, you definitely learn your limitations on certain stuff. And then like, oh, I was taking testosterone, and oh, okay, that's really cool and different. And like, but yeah, the voice thing is, I'm really happy that, as a trans non-binary person who has the background that I have in broadcasting, in theater, and all this other stuff, I can look at it a bit more, if not scientifically, objectively and professionally, and go, okay, yes, technically speaking, your pitch range is still in what most people would consider female. But I think for marketing, and we've talked about this before too, it's more of like okay, well, what kind of approach are you looking for? Does it matter if it's a female or a male voice? Are you looking for somebody who can do X, Y, Z and provide like the adjectives of like what is available for options, and just go from there? So yeah, like it's not like, yes, I understand where I sit in the pitch range, but look at it that way. So yeah, that's sort of where I'm trying to market myself now, I think, is like that. And I have to say, a great number of people that I worked with prior to taking testosterone and my voice changing, I'm still working with today, because I can still create the same sound that they were looking for prior to that, just a little bit deeper, which is nice.
Yeah, and you and I experienced that together recently because there was a client of ours who we had worked with maybe a couple of years ago, and they had requested your voice again, and I had to say, okay, we can get them. That's cool, but you need to know they've gone through hormone therapy, their voice has changed, and I sent them a sample, and I was very pleased they were cool with it. And but I was surprised, but maybe I shouldn't have been, because it with the voice, another thing that I keep preaching is part of it is the timbre of your voice, but a lot of it is just how you use it and your personality. And a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people think you have to have some big, sexy voice to do voiceover work. And I always tell them it's great to have a palatable voice, but it's more important to have presence. And there are a lot of people out there, making great money doing voice work who have, what we would call fairly average voices, but they have presence. Yeah. And I always use the example of somebody like Judi Dench. I'm a big fan of her. She has great presence. There's nothing really remarkable about her voice, but when she speaks, people listen. And why do they listen? Because she's not afraid of them, and she knows who she is, and she has that confidence. And a big part of voice work is really just, obviously it's a performance and you're speaking on behalf of somebody else, but it's still your personality that's driving it. So when you have a really good sense of who you are and what your abilities are and what your personality is, you're able to bring that to the table. And it's not just the sound that's coming out, but it's the delivery of that sound.
It really nails it on the head. It really does. Yeah. Because if you don't take the time to sort of understand yourself and what your approach is to that stuff, if you don't develop that ability, then it's just kind of flat, right? So yeah, you're absolutely right. If you have that character, that personality, that ability to take the copy of the script and make it your own, but also represent the business or organization or whatever, then it's just kind of flat. So I don't have much to add to that, because it's totally right on the money.
Well, thank you. No, but I appreciate your perspective. And like I said, I think we're both on the same page here. And I would really love, taking this a step further, going back to the non-binary aspect. This is a new thing in the industry and just in a lot of people's lives in general. Listeners are not used to non-binary voices. I think there's something, and I do think it's a learned thing. I think there's something about people where when they hear a voice, they instantly, even if it's subconsciously, are identifying whether it's male or female. And I think there's this, maybe a dissonance, but I don't think it's necessary. I think we'll get through this, but I think there is a dissonance when they don't know who they're listening to right away. And I think there's a necessity to overcome that, especially just on a practical level. If we're talking about narration, I mean, if you're casting voices and the voice is, Bob or Susan, then you're going to need someone who's going to sound like Bob or Susan. But if it's a narrator, there's just kind of this disembodied voice. Why would you need to know if they're male or female? Like, you wouldn't be wondering what color hat they're wearing. So what does it matter what they look like? And I like the idea of, again, embracing the full spectrum of the human voice. And I'd even like to see that, maybe just, this is sort of a side rant, chatbots. It'd be nice to, I think that would be a great place for non-binary voices as well. I've always been a little creeped out by the anthropomorphizing of chatbots. And I've always been puzzled that it's always a white woman as the chatbot. I would love to see, I'd love to see a little more diversity with our robots.
I'd love to see more diversity in general. I still think we're working towards that, and I think we're getting a lot better at it, even in the last like 5 to 7 years. But I just want to see more diversity in voices in general.
Yeah, well, and there's been a push for that too. I know SXM Sirius in the States, they did a big study last year about, I'll put a link in the description and everything, but they did a study about diversity in the voice industry. And yeah, there's a big push now for people of color in the voice industry. And in fact, I was talking to a casting agent a few months ago that said if you're a white male, it's very hard to find voice work right now, which, speaking as a white male who does voice work, that can be a little discouraging. But at the same time, as a sonic branding professional, that's extremely gratifying to see that we're again more embracing more of the whole spectrum of the human voice than ever before.
Yeah, I'm excited about it because for years and years and years, just working in radio and listening to things intently because I can't not. I'll be like listening to some ad on YouTube before my whatever I'm watching, or like it just all of the things, right? And I'm just like, that's a white guy, that's a white person. Okay, can we pick some more exciting voices, please? So I am really happy to see that. But yeah, going back to what you were saying previously about the dissonance that people have between like understanding whether or not it's a male or a female voice. And maybe I'm just speaking from my perspective, so I'm just biased because I'm non-binary. I'm just like, I want to text that. Let's see if like I'm gonna IMDb that. Who is that? Because I get excited about that now when I sort of clue into something maybe being like just a little bit different than the expectation. Mm-hmm. And for example, there's I watch a lot of cartoons with my kids, and there's this really great show on Netflix called Dead End Paranormal Park, and they have a transgender character named Barney in the show, and it's a great show, by the way. It's just a lot of fun. I would say it's probably like 7 or 8 plus, so younger kids maybe no, but the lead character Barney is actually played by a trans actor, and I'm seeing more of that as time goes on too. Like more people are actually getting hired for those roles. More of those roles are coming up in the first place, and more of those people are getting hired for those roles. And then you go and you check their CV, and they've got plenty of other voice work along with all of that. And I'm just like, yes, go get it. Go do the thing. So like, I'm so excited for them. Not just because like it, positively affects me, but because I'm just happy to see the representation, like a black person would be happy to hear more black people doing voice work. A trans person's definitely going to be happy to see or hear more trans people doing voice work. It's just, somebody like me or somebody like them is doing the thing. I think it just benefits everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I'm just happy to see and hear people being able to make a living as themselves to a certain degree and not having to fit into someone else's mold.
Well, and that goes back to what you were talking about previously too, about like the more average voices being in the industry nowadays, because I think that it just lends itself better to authenticity. You are that normal, average, sincere version of yourself. You're not playing a character. You're just you are what you are, and there's less of the expectation of being that guy. Like it's just it's what is that? Like if you can naturally do that, cool. But I can't, I have to put it on and it sounds ridiculous. And like it just doesn't.
Well, the thing is, everyone puts it on. No one naturally speaks like this, but it's a lot of fun to talk like this.
Okay, no, but I actually did meet 1 or 2 people who actually did naturally sound like that. And I was like, whoa.
That's because we've worked in radio.
It's like, wow, that's cool, but weird. So,
I distinctly remember the first time, and this was like 20 years ago when I first started working at a radio station. I got the tour of the station and I met all the on-air people, and someone was, oh, this is John, and someone shake my hand. Hi, John, nice to meet you. I was like, wow, they really talk like that. Not so much these days, but back then, they did. Yeah.
It's true, and it's just like so like, really? Wow. okay.
Yeah.
You know, like you just kind of like
getting
blink,
back
blink.
to what you were saying, though, yeah, I love that the industry really is, both for voiceover and branding, it's all about authenticity now.
Yes.
And I think that benefits everybody, and it makes sense financially and ethically.
Well, people aren't stupid. You know, they're going to hear something like that. And whenever you hear those kinds of voices nowadays, they're self-aware and being campy about it.
Absolutely.
Because they're trying for that, you know, and it's nice because, yeah, it doesn't assume that the listener is simple. You know, like it's just like they know what they're getting into here. It's a commercial.
Yeah.
Come on. So, yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate approaching the listener knowing like, okay, yes, we're trying to sell you something, but we're going to do it in a way that actually is more thoughtful and just, I don't know. I'm trying to find the word here, but I feel like it's just less cloak and dagger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Simon, thank you so much for chatting with me. It's always nice to talk with you, but this was a good conversation to have, and hopefully not the last of its kind.
Oh, I would be very happy to do this again. Thank you for having me.